Hi, this is Anita from the Dusty Roads podcast and from the blog A Bus on a Dusty Road. Today I want to talk a little bit about Angkor Wat, Cambodia, and why I believe it should be on everyone's bucket list. Angkor Wat is in Siem Reap, Cambodia, and it truly is one of the most magnificent wonders of the world. I have been there several times. It is worth visiting. And there's so many reasons why this is such an important historical site for everyone to visit that can. It is billed as one of the 8 wonders of the world. So it's not exactly the 7th wonder of the world. And this can sometimes be a little bit confusing because people will say Angkor Wat's one of the wonders of the world. Technically, it's not one of the wonders of the world, but many people say it is the 8th wonder of the world and it deserves to be a wonder of the world. But it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So UNESCO basically has come in and said that they're safeguarding the site and that it is a protected area. Angkor Wat is rich in history. Angkor Wat literally means city of temples. And so it's really, truly a magical place to visit, especially if you love old architecture and old temples. And it really shows us how advanced the Khmer Empire was, because of its cultural, religious, and the symbolic value of this tremendous structures that they built in Siem Reap, Cambodia. I just want to point something out here because this can be confusing for people. Angkor Wat is actually like the temple complexes, but it's in Siem Reap, Cambodia. So if you're going to actually fly to visit Angkor Wat, you wouldn't fly to Angkor Wat, the town, you would fly to Siem Reap. And I know that sometimes this can be confusing for people who maybe don't know or understand this, but I just kind of want to point that out, that you'd actually fly into Siem Reap. And for his flights, there's flights that go from, many different places from Asia directly into Siem Reap, or you can always fly from Phnom Penh. One of the things that makes Angkor Wat such an amazing place and why it is so popular is because it has some amazing architecture. It has over 72 major temples, and this 72 number does not include the hundreds of minor temples that are scattered throughout the area. So literally there's just hundreds of, temples in this area. And even what's more interesting is some of them are overgrown by the jungle. Some of them actually, they've cleared the jungle. So you can actually see how the temples were found because they were buried for hundreds of years under this jungle growth. And then they were discovered in the late 1800s. So it really is, it's amazing to be able to see the difference between the temples where the jungle's been cleared out and those that still have the jungle growth in them. It is a large religious complex. It can give you a glimpse into Cambodians' lives in the 12th century. And the temples were actually built for a Hindu god, not for a Buddhist god. And this is something else that can also get to be a little bit confusing because Cambodia now is a very strong Buddhist country. But actually, Angkor Wat was built for a Hindu god. If you like city planning or you're interested in city planning, this is also a great place to go visit because it shows you a lot about how the ancient Khmer Empire was able to do some wonderful city planning. There are, dikes, reservoirs, canals, and then it showed that it had this well-developed water system and communication route. It showed that it really had some advanced city planning for its day. It offered you some great, vibrant experiences. What I've always loved about Angkor Wat is we would do a bike ride there for charity. And we would get up early in the mornings. And as we were riding along early in the mornings, the monkeys would literally be lining the road and they'd be kind of laughing at us. And, so you can see monkeys there that are still there in some of the natural habitat. There's some villages that are still living there near the complex. You can just literally ride from, temple to temple, which is what we did on our bicycles. We just rode around this, massive temple complexes and areas. During its height, or during the time of Angkor Wat, it was considered to be the center of Southeast Asia. It was known that Chinese diplomats at the time would come to Angkor Wat, and that people from all over the world would come and visit Angkor Wat. It was actually the go-to place during this time when in the 1400s, when Angkor Wat was really at its height. Angkor Wat is actually a park. And like I mentioned before, there's villages there. So it's a park that actually has inhabitants. So there's villages that are surrounding the architectural monuments. And that's why you'll find that there are people that are living there. One of my favorite ways to go around Angkor Wat is there's basically two ways that I recommend. One would be cycling if you like to cycle. You can, cycle from temple to temple. It's, I believe, about 25 miles, U.S. miles around the main temple complexes there. If that's too much for you to cycle, I also love taking a tuk-tuk. A tuk-tuk's just a lot of fun. You really get a feel for the area and the countryside, and you could probably hire a tuk-tuk driver for the day that would take you around from temple to temple. I should warn that some of the temples have a lot of steps, and so there can be quite a bit of walking up and down steep, uneven steps, but they are truly some magnificent structures. There's some wonderful photos that you could take at Angkor Wat, and some of the most famous ones that most people like to go there to take would be at the sunrise and sunset. And one of the sort of things to do is that people will climb up to a top of a mountain there, and they will take photos of the sunset over Angkor Wat. And there really can be some beautiful sunsets and also some sunrises. If you are not Cambodian, you will need to purchase a ticket to come into the Angkor Wat Park. If you are Cambodian, it is free. But you can purchase a pass for 1 day, 2 days, or longer. I have found usually, 2 days is a lot. You can see a lot within 2 days, a lot of temples you can see. But if you really, really love old architecture and old temples, you might want to purchase a pass for a longer time. Besides just the Angkor Wat area, there's some, great places in the town of Siem Reap itself. Siem Reap has a really fun market. It has, some restaurants. It's just a really fun town to go in Cambodia. There's there's some groups there that will show you how they do some Cambodian handicrafts. And so besides just, Angkor Wat itself, there's other things you can do to make it a trip for a couple days. So if you have an opportunity, I would recommend that everyone gets it on their bucket list to go to see Angkor Wat, Cambodia, because it really is a magnificent temple structure. And if you're interested to read more, I have a blog about Angkor Wat, Cambodia, that you can read some more information. And in my blog, too, you can be able to click onto the some of the websites that will be able to tell you a little bit more about how much the tickets are and other things like that. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and Dusty Roads is all about living life as a global citizen. So we hope you will join us and live your life as a global citizen. Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is sponsored by A Bus on a Dusty Road, a blog about living life as a global citizen. Please go to our blog at abusonadastyroad.com and sign up for our free newsletter. If you've enjoyed this podcast, give us a thumbs up, leave us a review, and help to pass this along. Thank you so much for listening.